Welcome to the Roots of the Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Spirit Tawfiq. I'm a social justice passionista and daughter of the civil rights movement. This podcast is my commitment to serve as an intergenerational bridge and galvanize change by having honest conversations about identity, the social construct of race, racism, and social justice. Welcome to Roots of the Spirit. Hello, Roots of the Spirit community. I'm releasing this episode on the last day of June, which happens to be the last day of Gun Violence Awareness Month, which is at the core of today's conversation. However, I refuse to allow the topic of gun violence to be confined to 1 month of the year, so please spread the word about this episode in honor of gun violence awareness, which really needs to be 365 days a year. As it relates to this topic, my guests on today's episode are two phenomenally courageous men, Namel Norris and Rick Velasquez, talented hip-hop artists and motivational speakers in wheelchairs as a result of gun violence. I interviewed Namel and Rick a few weeks ago, and their stories have been heavily on my mind ever since. Violence, and in particular gun violence in the United States, is such a normalized epidemic that we are thoroughly saturated yet so desensitized to. Our courageous guests have decided to use their experiences with gun violence to speak up and make a change, to shine light on the sickness that is gun violence, and advocate for people with disabilities through various mediums, one of them being hip-hop, which they are both passionate about. On that note, stick around at the end of the episode to hear 4 Wheel City's song titled Welcome to 4 Wheel City. The content and discussion in this podcast will necessarily engage with gun violence, ableism, and experiences of emotional and physical trauma. My intention is to provide a platform from which we can engage bravely, empathetically, and thoughtfully with difficult content. Welcome to the Roots of the Spirit podcast, Namel and Rick. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show.
Great to be here.
I'm not sure if you recall, but I met you both at a community outreach event, and it was a street fair hosted by the Chinatown Business Improvement District in 2016. I was out there representing the Smithsonian, which is where I was working at the time, and you were performing that day.
Yeah, we both remember. I remember. Yeah, I do too. We didn't forget.
That's cool. I'm just curious because every guest that I have on the podcast, I love to be able to provide a point of reference on how we met to connect like the social justice community. But I remember having such an enriching conversation with you both, and I was really inspired by the work that you're doing around putting an end to gun violence, disability awareness, and also you're a hip hop group. I follow 4 Wheel City on social media. And June is Gun Violence Awareness Month. So I've been following some of the activities that you've been involved in, the fact that you're out in the community wearing orange, you're doing performances. So I really want to dive deep into that. But first, I want to go back. I will start with Namel. Can you give me a snapshot of where you were born and raised and what life was like in your family and community?
Well, I was born in the home of hip-hop, the Bronx, raised there, South Bronx, 169, 170. The 9 is what they call it, Washington Avenue, 3rd Avenue. Well, my mother, she was me, my 2 younger sisters. So I was the only boy growing up. My neighborhood, my friends, just a young kid. Any other in the projects there, just trying to get into going to school, playing basketball. Then on the other side, hanging out in the streets with my friends, getting into the neighborhood stuff that kids grow up getting into. And that was pretty much my life until this happened to me. Just trying to find my way in the streets and also, going to school. And rapping, I've always been rapping since I was like 12 years old. So I was also pursuing my music career even from a young age with my group Nova and Elite Cartel. At the time, that was my dreams. And just a young kid, just doing a normal thing.
Nice. Thanks, Namel. How about for you, Rick? Where did you grow up and what was your journey?
I was born in Honduras, Central America. When I was 15, me, my mom, and my sister, we migrated to the U.S. looking for the American dream. So I had to learn how to adapt to a new culture. I was coming from speaking Spanish culture. And I had to come in, go to school, and learn a new culture. It was hard at the beginning. Then I got the hang of it, and I went to high school. I always had the love for the Bronx. I had a cousin that used to go to Honduras every summer. He would always tell me things about the Bronx, the U.S., so I kind of knew a little bit when I came. So it didn't take me a lot to adapt to a new culture. And I went to school like a normal kid, and I got a part-time job. I was a normal kid, learning new things every day.
Now I'd like to talk about what school was like for you both. Let's start with you, Namel. What was your experience like in elementary, middle, and high school?
In elementary school is where I started like getting involved in music because I went to a Catholic school that was also a music performer on school, like St. Augustine, and they had us playing instruments when we were young. So school for me from younger was also a lot of music was involved because I was playing the guitar and electric bass. We had a chorus. We would do like concerts, at least 2 or 3 a year. So it was a lot of like performing. And then when I went to high school, I kind of got away from it a little bit, but it kind of feel like I doubled back now. And then my last year of high school is when I got shot. So after I came home from the hospital and everything, I went back to high school in a wheelchair. And so that was a whole different experience from previously. That school experience had more so to do with me finding myself. It was still social aspects to it, but I think it was more me just still wanting to get out and be social. Through the years, I finished high school, then I went to a 2-year college, got my 3-year degree, then I went to get a bachelor's. And through that process, I just learned more about what I wanted to do more in life and how I could use school to do that, which was like music and also getting a job with the city, working with 311 for a little while. So I just started using school more to navigate what I was trying to do in life.
Rick, can you describe your educational experience as well?
I did all that back home. When I came here, they put me on the 9th grade. And then from there, I went to the 10th, 11th, 12th. And I was learning as I was going, adapting to a new way of life, new culture. So I was just learning different things. It was a great experience. I remember in high school, I got into, I used to hang with a group of guys from back home. And we used to always get in trouble. They jumped me one time. I had to get transferred to a different school. Luckily, at the new school, I had a cousin that was also born here that used to always go back home. And I kind of felt protected at the new school. And I was kind of on my own, really. Young kid, learning new things. It was a great experience. Like what I was getting here for free when I got here, you had to pay a lot of money back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't take it for granted, like free lunch, stuff like that. Back home, you had to buy your own lunch. I came from a poor country, so I took advantage of everything that they had up there. When it comes to school, I didn't take it for granted. Like cutting class and stuff like that. I used to always go to class, go to music class, carpentry, everything that they had. And in school, I was involved with that because I knew back home, it would be hard for me to get into all that stuff.
Thank you both for sharing your experiences. I wholeheartedly think that in order for us to fully understand one another's experiences, that we have to know our roots and where we came from and what that journey was like. At this point, I'd like to switch gears. Namel, you mentioned that it was actually while you were in high school when you were shot. But through learning your stories, I understand that, Rick, you became a victim of gun violence 3 years prior. If you are comfortable, can you describe the night that you became a victim of gun violence?
Oh, it's a night that sometimes I wish I could just erase out my memories. And doing stuff like this, it always brings me back, which I'm not really a fan of doing interviews a lot because it always takes me back to that day. And it's a day that I always try to forget.
Please do know that I want to be the utmost respectful. And if talking about this is not comfortable for you, then we can take the conversation in a different direction.
No. I'll tell you, it's the honest truth. Because every time I have interviews like this, it takes me back to that moment. It's a moment that I don't even want to think about sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was I was in the 12th grade at this high school in the Bronx, and I was walking home from school. They had a party, like a senior party around June. So I went to it, and then me and a couple of friends, then I had to go. I had a part-time job. I used to work at this fast food restaurant in the Bronx called White Castle. So I had to go to work the next day. So my friends went to a different party, and I decided to go home and rest for the next day. So I had to be at work at like early in the morning. So I went home. So on my way home, I'm walking, and I just saw like a commotion, people running. And the next thing I heard was gunshots. I'm on the floor bleeding. They took me to the hospital. It felt like a nightmare, like a dream. And then it took me to Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx. And they told me I wasn't going to be able to walk anymore. And at this time, I was just thinking the pain I was feeling is the worst pain I ever felt. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy or nobody. And at the time, I had a girlfriend that she was pregnant. She was like 4 months pregnant with my son. So it felt like a movie. And I remember she came to the hospital to see me and she said, please don't die on me. So from that moment on, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about this child that God had blessed me with. So I had to be there for that kid. And it became about him. It was everything about him. That gave me strength to fight back and do the things I've been doing since that day. They took me to Jacoby Hospital. I was there for like almost a month. Then they transferred me to another hospital in Manhattan called Mount Sinai Hospital. I was there for another month. And then from there, my apartment wasn't wheelchair accessible. So they took me to like a nursing home where I was there for almost 3 weeks until my older sister decided to bring me home even though her apartment wasn't wheelchair accessible. She didn't want to see me inside the nursing home. At the age that I was and everything that I was going through at the time, she felt like it was too much for me. So she brought me home and I stayed with her for like 6 months until me and my mom, we got in a wheelchair accessible apartment in the projects in the Bronx where I'm still staying today.
Rick, your courage is immeasurable, and I can't thank you enough for your bravery to share your story. Namel, just to echo what I was saying to Rick, I'm completely open to where we take this conversation.
As uncomfortable as it is, like Rick and I, we know like the fact that we get opportunities to do it is like bigger than us, so we talk about things a lot too, that, it's not just our story sometimes, it's like we still here for a reason. So like we kind of have some responsibility sometimes to own up to that because it comes with a lot, but we also get a lot of opportunity to do it at the same time, which is a blessing too. And that's what it is sometimes. But my story is like when I was 17, my cousin accidentally shot me playing around with a gun, which was like what led up to that moment was kind of just the lifestyle we was living at the time, like running the streets, when I have guns, do bad things. So that gun, that day it happened, we were kind of sharing it at the time. I forgot where he got it from, but we was living together like my brother. And one of our friends that we used to hang out with asked to borrow it, and he came back with it and, started inquiring about the safety on the gun, which at the time thought it was on the gun. It was during my sister's like Sweet 16 party that my mother was throwing in my house. And we in the room playing around with a gun, and then it went off. My cousin was like, start waving the thing, it was on safety, but I guess it wasn't. This bullet like struck me in my neck, and that's how I ended up paralyzed. A lot of my family was there. So it was kind of like a moment where I stood still for a lot of people. It wasn't just like me. It was like everybody had to share that moment and take that chaos thing. The story of my journey since then, and then, me and Rick having that same thing in common, like the way it happened to both of us, not necessarily being like a direct thing, like kind of accidental or mistaken or whatever the case, but it's like something we share in this story and this journey that when we do Forward City. That's like connected like that way too, because people don't always think about it that way when they think about guns and gun violence. It's layered with a lot of different stories and crazy things that happen to people that people got to be made aware of.
Thank you to you, Namel, as well, for your courage. It's brave of you. It's brave of you both. That is why I wanted to speak with you, because of the fact that you're using your platform to shine a light on the epidemic of gun violence and have become disability advocates. So how did you initially meet?
I met Namel mother first. It was my son's birthday, and I had ordered some Domino's pizza, so I went downstairs to go get it. When I was leaving my building, it was a group of ladies sitting in front of my building. So I'm coming out the building, and this beautiful lady approached me, and she said, "Hey, can I speak to you for a minute?" She introduced herself, said her name was Vanessa Norris, and she had a son named Namel. And she briefly told me what had happened to him, that he was in the hospital, he was in a chair like me, and he didn't know anybody else in the wheelchair if I wouldn't mind being his friend. So I said, of course not. So I gave his mom my phone number, and then I think the next day he gave me, he called me. It was more for support, really, just to ask questions about being in the wheelchair, because I have been in a wheelchair 3 years prior to him being in a wheelchair. So I had a little bit more experience than him. Mm-hmm. Then when he called me, we were just talking about random thing like wheelchair thing. It wasn't even about music. When he called, asking me questions about how you do this, how you do that. That's how our relationship started, really. It was for moral support.
Can you talk about some of the questions and some of the things that you had to learn and deal with, and like what you learned over those 3 years that you were able then to articulate to Namel?
Luckily for me, when they took me to Jacoby Hospital in the Bronx, there was this guy named Jimmy. I remember he's from Jamaica. He was also in the chair. He just happened to be in the hospital around that time. So I got introduced to him around that time, which was very helpful to me because I didn't know anybody in the chair. So he kind of was telling me about good things and the bad things. Sometimes it's going to be hard. You got to take them one day at a time. Things might get better. You never know when you get hurt sometimes. The thing about the spine is when it heals, the nerves come back. You might walk again. It's like a waiting game, really. So you always have your hopes up. It was just 3 years in, so my injury was incomplete, which means some of my nerve was still working. I was able to move my leg, wiggle my toes. I had feelings on both legs. So I always had hopes. And like I said earlier, my girlfriend was pregnant, so that was my motivation. So I didn't have any time to think about, I'm in the wheelchair now. My life has changed so drastically. I knew it did. I couldn't focus on that. My main focus was being there for my son, being a father, and doing what I had to do for him. So that gave me strength.
Yeah.
So when I met Namel, it was around that time where I had all the energy in the world. I wasn't thinking about, I'm in a wheelchair now, I feel sorry for myself. Nah, I couldn't think like that.
So Namel, your recollection of meeting Rick?
It was pretty cool. Like I just remember, like you said, I remember calling him. Remember my mother coming to give me the number. But it's so funny because I actually seen Rick before that time. Like when I think maybe my first couple of days being home, I seen him going into his building, and I like turned my head fast because I didn't want to see because I didn't want to see me. Because I think at the time I had just came home, and where I was at in Burke Rehab, it was like I didn't see, like, maybe when I first got there, it was this one guy. His name was Lamar. And he was cool. He was like the only young, like black, urban type kid that I seen at the time. Then when I came home, Rick was the second one, but I just felt like I didn't need to speak to him because I was in a wheelchair, he's in a wheelchair, whatever, and I was just hanging out with my friends, my old friends I used to hang out with. So then when I got the number, I don't know how we got to the point of him agreeing to let me come to his house, but I know when I went to his house for the first time, I took my friend P with me. I remember just like kind of playing the background a little bit because Rick was actually like kind of working on a beat when we got to his house. And I don't even think I knew he was doing music. Or maybe we talked about it in the conversation, but I just remember he was working on a beat. And so like our first conversation was about music because the friend that was with me, he knew about equipment and everything. So they was talking about the MPC 2000 that just came out. So like our first conversation was really about music. That's what I remember. Like I feel like the first day we met, it was like, all right, time to get to work. That's how it felt to me because he gave me a beat. And I felt like it was like I went to get like an assignment. I've been making songs for Rick B since the first day I met him.
Wow.
Remember I came back and I wrote like 2 songs, and then I had we was working on the CD thing, and then the producer I was working with, Luck, had he had gave us a 4-track, so we on the microphone, so we could start recording. And that's how we started recording. Because in the other studio I was going to with the people I was working with before, it was like up this long hill, and it wasn't wheelchair accessible. So Rick, his house being right there, him working equipment, it was like a blessing because it got me right back to what I wanted to do.
So one of the themes that has run through all of the conversations that I've had up to this point, whether we're talking about disability activism or trying to uproot racism, one of the ongoing themes is representation. What is your vision of representation and why that matters for young people to see themselves represented? I
feel like that's actually very important to me. That's why a lot of times from when we first started doing that, we try to stay authentic to like the way we look, and we be in a lot of different environments and different places where people don't look like we look. They don't dress like we dress where we come from. But we go there and we try to stay the way we are. And it's so funny you bring that up because the first time I seen Rick, that's what I seen in Rick. When I didn't want to speak to him, I seen he was like me.
Mm-hmm.
I seen like he dressed like me, and that was my first time seeing that as another person in the wheelchair. And so it was like kind of shocking to me. So like to take that forward to what we do now, and we go speak to kids or either other people in wheelchairs, it's like I always wanted to like still be cool because I think that's very important, that look of coolness or whatever it is. It might be to anybody what it represents for them, but we went to the White House and we had on like our fitted hat, but with our blazers on. But we was like, that just shows we didn't do that trying to floss anything. That's just how we felt about how we present ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
To us, it's like sometimes we don't even know what we're doing in the moment. But when we look back at a lot of stuff, we like, that's important, because I go back to like somebody like Russell Simmons, who always like wore his hat and stuff, or things like that. It always connected to me, because I felt like he was doing something and he had to change who he was. And I think that's important for people to see, that you can do things that's great and don't have to change who you are.
I love that message. Namel, earlier you mentioned that you went back to finish high school while you were in a wheelchair. What was that like? Did you face barriers to accessibility?
Actually, when I was in the rehab upstate, trying to build back up my strength and everything, I actually had a tutor for like a couple of months. So then when I came home, the school that I was going to at the time, they had just moved to a new building that wasn't wheelchair accessible. So they was like, do you want a new tutor? Do you want to get a tutor that's going to come to your house? Or do you want to try going back to a whole new school? So that was like a real like choice for me to make. But I actually chose for them to find me a new school and try to go, because I was always used to going back to school. I was always just used to that routine of going to school and getting up in the morning and traveling on a train. Like I said, school is like a big social thing for me, and I always wanted to go hang out with my friends or talk to girls or whatever the case may be. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to sit in the house or like winter and stuff. So let me go try to go back to school. I didn't think I was going to really like it. I thought it was going to be isolating. And like maybe I would have to deal with a lot of feeling like outcast and stuff, but I just wanted to challenge myself a little bit and just see how it would make out in that environment. And if I didn't like it, I could always just stop. But when I went back to high school for that last year, most of the people there were like really nice to me. That's when I was like, okay, so I could do this. And it gave me something like to strive for every day. And so I kept that same attitude as I went forward. And it helped build my character more so coming out my shell at the time too. Because sometimes when you have a life-changing moment or situation and like your identity is in question a little bit, you have to be able to put yourself in spaces where you can react, to see like you got to challenge yourself and react to see how your personality will handle certain things. For me, it was working out to where I was feeling getting more confident in my ability to go out into the world. So I kept growing like that. And it started from going back to school. I think that was like my first big challenge of like going out to the world.
So for you, Rick, did you go back to school?
Nah, I could have. I didn't. I became a full-time daddy. And what I did was, instead of me going to school, my son's mother went back to college, and I decided to stay home with my son, take care of my son, so she could go get her degree. And at the same time, that's how I got deep into the music, to learn my craft, how to use certain equipment, video editing equipment, graphic design. That was the thing that helped Four Wheel City later on. We was doing our own thing. We was printing our own CDs. We was recording our own music, mixing down our own music, doing videos. I didn't go to school for it, but I took the time while I was here with my son to learn all those things.
That is too cool. That is really awesome. I love that. So I want to talk about Four Wheel City. You hit it off right away. You both had hip hop music in common, and you started working together from the first time that you met. So take me on the journey of Four Wheel City.
Let Namel start, because he has a good way to tell his story, how the whole thing started.
Four Wheel City it really started the moment I think Rick and I met, like musically. Four Wheel City is an idea for people to be inspired in two ways. It was like to be inspired to not give up and to push forward, and also like know that just because somebody is in a wheelchair or has a setback, that doesn't mean they can't be talented and go out into the world and make a change. In Four Wheel City, when Rick and I first started working on music together, that wasn't our mission. We were just really trying to make dope music, and we was doing that. But then in the process of doing that, we were seeing things that was bothering us or made us just talk and question things, like stuff not being wheelchair accessible, or like people that we know who were like in wheelchairs. Like, God bless the dead, we had a good friend who was in a wheelchair. His name was P. Dice, and he would push himself everywhere from Brooklyn to come see us in the Bronx, and we'd be talking about stuff, and he didn't have a lot of information. Like, he didn't know about getting a social security check. He didn't know about accessorize. He didn't know so much things that we knew that we felt like people should know. So he gave us inspiration and want to help people have inspiration to get information. So so me and Rick always had like a passion to help people, and also like put a voice behind disability. So we was working together doing music, and our name was 4 Wheel Records, and I was Tapwater the artist, and Rick is my producer. And then I was working on my second mixtape. I was doing a remix to I think Cameron and Jay-Z song, Welcome to New York City. Instead of saying New York City, I'm flipping it to 4 Wheel City, because we had 4 Wheel Records. And I'm like, Rick was recording me, and like right in that moment, we kind of knew what it was. Just the idea of saying 4 Wheel City. That's the place. That's the idea that people can get everything we wanted people to have. And we was trying to change. It's like an actual place now. Like, we built a place called 4 Wheel City, and it started with music. Rick and I, we didn't even know at first that we would be doing music as 4 Wheel City. It was just like an idea. And then we made that song, Welcome to 4 Wheel City, and that was like off to the races with it, because that's when we learned that 4 Wheel City is bigger than the two of us. 4 Wheel City is for everybody. It's inside everybody's in every city. And the mission is to inspire people never to give up, educate the youth about experiences. We advocate for disabilities rights, and then we entertain. And that it's a blessing, because it gave us a way to showcase our talent as like doing music. And sometimes it might go over people's head, because they might hear some of the music and they'll think like, Rick and I, this is why we do music, for those messages. But really, me and Rick is just like two talented artists, and we could do whatever kind of music we want to do. But this is something that challenges us and is a voice for people.
Absolutely beautiful the way you describe it, because like you said, you're two talented artists. You want to create music, good music, and out of that organically grew everything else. And it's almost like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how about from your point of view, Rick?
I mean, he pretty much said everything, but just to echo some of the stuff that he mentioned, we never set out to become motivational speakers or advocates for people with disability. We were just trying to find something to do, really. And we started doing music, and then we started speaking about things that matters to us now that we have a disability. Like he said, on places not being wheelchair accessible, on people not knowing about certain resources that's out here for people with disability. That's where we came up with the idea, like, you know what, we need to build a platform where everybody that has disability can go there and get information about how to get into housing, how to get a job, how to go back into Social Security, SSI. That was the main idea behind 4 Wheel City. And they turned it into what it is now, which is a beautiful thing.
So what do you think was the turning point from producing music to becoming a movement?
The turning point was, I remember Namel, he was working at Mount Sinai Hospital, some program. He could tell you about that, but I'm just going to tell you my part. So I came to see him one day while he was at work, and there was this guy named Jim, what's his name? Jim Cesario? That's his name, that?
Yeah.
They was going to have an event like the following week or 2 days later. It was some fundraiser, right? People with disabilities, something that they had going on in Mount Sinai. So I told him, you know Namel rap, right? He was like, no, wait, let me hear something. And then he decided to spit a verse about disability. He was like, hey, you know what? You come and perform at the event we having tomorrow at the fundraiser. In my opinion, that's how the whole thing started. He could tell you more about it.
I would say that was the moment, I guess you could say it was like activated, because it was like that fundraiser came, I don't think it was the next day, but it was like, I think it was like a month later or something like that. It was coming up. And it's so ironic that we had just recorded the song, Welcome to 4 Wheel City, the movement, maybe like a week before. And that's a song talking about bringing more awareness and accessibility. And I was like, I want to perform that song, because I know there's going to be a lot of people in wheelchairs in the room and they can relate, as opposed, I didn't know where else I could perform the song. And at this time, Rick and I had we never did like no show together, because we wasn't a group. Rick just was my producer, and we was working on building like 4 Wheel City, like for the people. But like we never did no interview together. We never like talked like we was together as a unit. So that song is kind of what actually brought Rick and I together. And another good friend of ours who used to come with us all the time when we first started out manga, he used to come help us all the time. So when I got the opportunity to perform, I was like, I want y'all to come with me, because this song is saying welcome to 4 Wheel City, and it ain't just me. So I want y'all to be up there with me. Mm-hmm. And that's how we started like performing together. And from that moment, it was like 4 Wheel City was born, because after that, we got asked to perform somewhere else, the Disabilities Expo, somebody wanted to interview us. It was like stuff that just came after the performance, and then it was good timing. I was just about to finish going to Lehman College, so it was giving me something to look forward to. And so after that happened, I started seeing the potential, and me and Rick, we started taking it serious because even though things was happening, nobody was really coming to us and like helping us push it forward or like organize it or structure it. So we had to do that ourselves. And it was a good time because I was just finishing school. And again, that's what I wanted to do like the rest of my life. Even that song, The Movement, is so funny because that almost didn't happen. That moment almost didn't happen because I was with Rick. We was in the studio and I was leaving. Like he had played the beat for me. And I was like, Rick, this beat is so hot, man. Like in a club, this beat would be dope. But what I would like to do is actually make a song about something, like a message, because I felt like that was missing from hip hop at the time. I felt like I never heard a song that when I heard the beat that would have a message and people could actually be like bouncing to the message as opposed to just somebody just saying like just drink or do drugs or do something crazy in the club or whatever. But I just knew that beat was so hot that I was like, let's try to make the song about stuff not being wheelchair accessible. But then I had to leave because my accessory ride at the time was downstairs and the beat was so hot and I was feeling it so much. I was starting to write it a little bit. I had to leave, but the ride left, so I had to go back to Rick. And so while I was waiting for my next ride to come, that's how we made the song. But I just wanted to really finish the song because I was really inspired by the message. And that's how it came to be. And I only started writing songs like that. I want to give a shout out to I always be wanting to do that to like a lot of the artists that I grew up around. In the neighborhood we grew up in, a lot of talented like rappers. And I always felt challenged by them. And I was like, damn, like now that I'm like this, how can I be different? And that's what made me want to start writing different type of songs because of them a lot. And I think they helped me and Rick want to be different and like not be afraid to like challenge ourselves like musically.
Four Wheel City is performing music. You're doing motivational speeches at hospitals, schools, rehab centers, fundraisers, and you have been all over the world spreading your message and your movement.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been like?
It's been great. It's been a dream.
It's so real. I mean, sometimes we go to these places and we be like, we here for real? We at the White House? We at the United Nations? The funny thing about it, we feel like superheroes because we go to these places, right? And you would think, all right, we done. We just came from the White House. We going to our own house. We going to a house somewhere in Jersey. We come back to the projects to see bricks and walls. There's a reason for that. I guess we have a story to tell. Like we go and do what we need to do and come back to the projects in the Bronx. In the Bronx, he goes to the projects in Manhattan. So that keep us humble.
The White House, the United Nations. I see Namel posted up with Jay-Z.
And also crazy about all that stuff is like, we always feel like that stuff is not for us. It's for what the message is. Like these people are put in the path for a reason. And like we meet so many people, go so many places. And like Rick's saying, it feel like we just the servants of it. I feel like it's for everybody else. I feel like it's just a journey. And I love it. I love it because it keeps me hungry and ambitious about it because all the dots connect and come back to the things that we're trying to do at the end of the day. I wouldn't have it no other way. I've been like that since a kid. I like to surprise. I like to be like a surprise, I don't mind a chip on my shoulder or people underestimating us because we've been through that so many times where people see us and be like, what these two guys in the wheelchair going to do here? Like we've been to showcases or sometimes even when we go to the schools or wherever the case may be. And then by the time we finish doing what we do, you can just sense a whole different type of vibe and level of respect. So a lot of things we do, I feel like that's part of it. And so when we meet people and we go places, I feel like that's the story that's supposed to be told. Even look at like somebody like Nipsey Hussle, like the legacy he left behind. I always think about like the stuff he was doing, like right in his own community. Sometimes you just never know how the things you do affect and appreciate over time.
I totally hear what you're saying. And like I said earlier, like I've been watching your work over the last 3 years. It's just amazing to see how your movement has transformed and all of the work that you're doing. And I just know that you're impacting so many people every single day. At the heart of your work is a campaign to put an end to gun violence. I know you work with youth a lot. So what is your core message for young people in particular?
That's a big message in terms of like, it's very sensible. For me, Rick could tell you what it is for him because we both come from different experiences from it. But for me, being that I came from a place where the gun that shot me was also a gun that I like carried on my hip and probably loaded the bullet that shot me into that gun. If I can go in front of a kid and say that to a kid who might want to carry a gun, and just maybe that one day he might pick up that gun and be like, maybe just have a glimpse of my voice in his head, like, damn, like that guy, I heard, like this gun I'm carrying, this might be the gun that shoot me one day. This bullet I'm putting in this gun, that might be the bullet that shoot me one day. Just to have that thought planted in like a young person's head, I think is important. And then on the flip side of that, that's the scary part. But I think the hopeful part about me and Rick is doing is that that's not it. You know, we didn't give up. So it's like that other side of it is like not to make excuses, and you can make your dreams happen. And if we doing it in wheelchairs, coming from the bottom and overcoming what we overcoming, then any young person or anybody shouldn't have no excuse. And if they do feel like they want to have an excuse, they can just come to Fort Worth City and get inspiration.
For you, Rick, when you're in the community and you engage with politicians or community leaders, what is your message about gun violence?
My message is we need to take all the guns away from the people that don't need to have a gun. I have a new proposal next time I see somebody that's into politics. You know what it is? We need to put taxes on bullets. The price of bullets needs to go up to $1,000 a bullet. Let me see who's going to be shooting people out there. See how they put taxes on cigarettes and it's a big thing about legalizing weed and all that. How about we put some taxes on bullets? I mean, it's not the guns that kills the bullet.
I like that one. Oh, and now since we're on that topic, I want to if you don't mind, I just thought about that. I want to send a get well to Big Poppy, David Ortiz. He just got shot in the DR. I just wanted to say that because I met him before and he showed me a lot of love and whatnot, and I heard about that happening. I hope he get well. I don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah, I did.
It sounded like crazy, something like that happening to a guy like him in his hometown, and then it's Gun Violence Awareness Month, so we talk about it. I just wanted because it just, I think sometimes it becomes so routine with guns and gun violence that you almost forget how many people have actually been killed or victims to gun violence, because it just sounds like just a headline sometimes that the gun, you don't even realize, like, it's still gun violence.
I completely agree, which is why I feel like your stories have so much power and weight and influence and impact, because we are inundated with violence. When you turn on the television, but also like gun violence. I was looking up statistics before our conversation, and all of the politicians are talking about gun violence now because we're coming up on an election. So everyone was tweeting, we lose 100 Americans every day to gun violence and dozens of others who are injured. 100 people a day?
Wow.
I believe your story is incredibly powerful and gives us so much to think about. We have such a long way to go in terms of eliminating gun violence and creating an accessible world where access is a reality for people with disabilities. And I want to say thank you for creating Four Wheel City as a platform to use your talents and gifts to make a change. I have a sister in a wheelchair, and I'm ashamed to say that my awareness around access came after she was in a car accident and had to use a wheelchair. I'm working very hard to try to make a change in myself when it comes to different communities and being aware of the structural barriers that exist. And I want to use this platform to help people become educated and aware of, so that the emotional labor does not always fall on the people who had the personal experiences. My last gear shift as we're coming to the close of this beautiful conversation, without any context or explanation, my signature question. Namel, what are the roots of your spirit?
Oh, that's cool. The roots of my spirit, it's cool to do this right now too, because our last mixtape was called Spiritual, and it was like a lot of just spiritual vibes on there. And the roots of my spirit, I think, just comes from the essence of, like, a lot of it has to do with the way I grew up. My mother just staying sensitive to, like, the universe and God, and paying attention to the signs. And for me, I try to I'm a very spiritual person, and every day I'm looking for something to lead me in the right direction. My spirit is rooted in faith. I think you got to have a lot of faith. I think the battle for the spirit, most of the time is between like faith and fear. And like, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen the next second from now. It could be a little like daunting, or people could feel like can give themselves a lot of negative feedback. And a lot of my spiritual side come from me trying to just not take it all on myself. And like actually, I believe in the spirit. So I actually try to connect with the spirits on a day-to-day basis and do things based on spiritual necessity and seeing how that would play out, and not try to carry it all myself and let the spirit take control. And through that and faith, you start to see a trend of a pattern of the way things play out. I think spirituality is an exercise. You gotta practice it and test it all the time and see how it plays out. And once you keep getting like confirmations of certain things, then it lets you know that the spirits is real. At least that's what happens for me. And just seeing how things play out, no matter if it's good or bad, but not being discouraged in that and still pushing forward.
Rick, what are the roots of your spirit?
How am I supposed to follow what this man just said? Oh my God. It's always happened. Pretty much surviving. Did that fateful day. I could have been gone. And then God blessed me with a beautiful child. Even after me being in the chair, I have a daughter that's 7 years old now. So he blessed me with a daughter after this happened to me. So if you don't believe in something after that, and then God, I don't know why it has to happen. Being blessed with two beautiful kids, especially the second one when the doctors thought that I wasn't going to be able to have kids anymore. And I have a daughter that's 7 years old. You know, and my son, he finished college. He's a grown man now, and that's God right there. God give blessings.
That's fabulous. I appreciate you both very much for being so open, honest, and true, and speaking so candidly about your experiences. Where can the Roots of the Spirit community catch up with 4 Wheel City?
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, if you're on social media, everything is just 4 Wheel City. The number 4, WHEELCITY. On Instagram is 4 Wheel Citygram. On Spotify, iTunes, the same name, but just with a space, 4 space Wheel space City space. Yeah, like the GoFundMe as well. If anybody wants to support our school efforts with the youth and our Welcome to Reality tour. And be on the lookout for us on the TV, because we got some things coming up. Can't talk too much about, but we be around. Just come to 4 Wheel City, 4wheelcity.com. We're gonna be selling our hats and our shirts online. It's gonna be on our site. We here, we around.
And the proceeds from that goes back to pushing the moving forward. It's not going in our pocket now.
Well, I thank you so much. And I know that the Roots of the Spirit community will be so glad to hear your story, and will support the movement in any way that we can. Also, thank you guys for blessing the Roots of the Spirit community with your song, Welcome to 4 Wheel City, which will play at the end of the episode. Thank you, Namel, and thank you, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yo. Tired, man. Get this car to start. Yeah. 4 Wheel City. Alright, let's roll. Let's go. Drop that. Coppers over us. They watching. They don't want us to be a part of their city, man. They pull all these steps, man. All these curves we can't get all good, though. Whoa. All these inaccessible stores. 4 Wheel City. Resilient. They don't want us here. Survive. So what we gonna do? We gonna make our own place. Welcome to 4 Wheel City. First, I like to say, rest in peace to Christopher Reeves. But I got something on my chest that's been bothering me. What's the problem be? When I'm out in the streets, it's like I can't go nowhere. What's wrong with me? How come when I go to the store, I gotta call first to see if it's wheelchair accessible? How come they treat me like a vegetable? Like I ain't here, but I'm here. And I can say I don't care, but the truth is I can't walk up the stairs. So I need a ramp and the elevator too. And while you at it, bring a accessible bathroom. Man, when you want the same thing, if it happened to you, hey, welcome to 4 Wheel City. Where you from? 4 Wheel City. Glad to have y'all. 4 Wheel City. It's the movement to come for improvement. Welcome to 4 Wheel City. Where you let you roll it like we 4 Wheel City. We making it like we making it. 4 Wheel City. Survive, man. Survive for improvement. Now here's a little something that be popping my nerves. I hate when day walkers be blocking the curb with their cars like they stars. I watch and observe, like excuse me sir, can I cross the street? Can't you see I'm in the chair? Cause I can't move my feet. Why you blocking the curb? Why I can't get by? It's because you standing up and I'm paralyzed. Am I less than you? Are you more than me? If I didn't speak up, would you had noticed me? And George Bush don't wanna fund stem cell research. We see what happens when his back and his feet hurt. This is a deep verse, and that discrimination is played out. Yeah, we got limitations, but don't count us out. And if you feelin' what I'm saying, let me hear you shout. Let me roll Will City, it's a way out. It's a way out, baby. Welcome to Will City. Where you on my path. Will City. On my quad. We come. Will City. It's the movement. For improvement. That's what it is, baby. Will City. We about to change all this. Will City. We come. Will City. It's the movement. For improvement. Now all my four-wheelers, I know y'all agree. All we really want is accessibility. A little respect and be treated equally. If you feel like I feel, repeat after me. Buildings with no elevators, that ain't right. Stores with no ramps in them, that ain't right. Apartments with the doors too small, that ain't right. Bathrooms with no accessible stores, that ain't right. Buses with no lifts in them, that ain't right. Curves with no cutouts, man, that ain't right. Health insurance cutbacks, that ain't right. Stem cell research band, that ain't right. That ain't wrong. To Will City, where you came a long way. Will City, here we come. Where we here now? It's the movement for improvement. Everything about the change. About the change of God, man. They're gonna respect it. We come. Never look at somebody in the chick game. For improvement. Welcome to Will City, where you from. Gotta love Will City. Here we come. Even if you hate Will City, cause it's the movement for improvement. Yeah, that's right. It's power. Y'all heard it right. We ain't taking it no more, man. We ain't taking. We fleeing the city. We creating our own city. Our own. Four wheels. Rick Fire on the track. That's right. Tap Wall on the rap. You know that's right. It's four wheels. This goes out. It's one. Two on my T's. That's two. My C's. That's my L's. My pals.